welcome. So we are Thursday, November 17th, flying outside of the United States for your monthly Don't Get Rusty. Slide, please.
Don't forget, exit strategies are a cool name for this. Go ahead.
Oh, right. We always have to have a cool name. We didn't go as cool as usual, though. Okay. So generously brought to you by the triumvirate called Jepson for Flight under the Boeing brand. So we thank them for bringing this to you. Not that we're paying these two clowns up there on the screen, but you know. All right. We're going to go through the maintenance, of course. As always, please remember there are several ways that you're listening, whether it be a laptop of some kind or a device, a mobile device. Either way, there's two different ways to look at it. If you want to ask questions, you'll notice that that thing on the right there, that is the actual laptop, I guess, browser format to do it. So that's where you can ask your questions. Some of you already have it. Fantastic. The other one is the mobile one. It's a little different, as you can see. You can ask questions there. Now, this is more important when we're giving stuff away so that we don't have anyone that argues when they responded to get your swag. We're not giving nothing away this week, though. But stay tuned because Christmas is next month, so who knows? Santa Claus might stop by. He's already wearing his mountain flannel, so Santa might be here. All right, next slide.
Hold on, I clicked on it, but there it goes. Hey, look at that.
Cold. That's right. Look at that beautiful flag. So, hi, I'm Pablo Maurelia, Senior Director of Flight Training Technology, pilot, tech guy, animal lover. Oh, we forgot cool guy, too. Instructor iPad app is what I've been working on.
It doesn't.
Among everything else. Welcome. If you'd like to use it, please go to aopa.org/AFTA. Chris, let's throw it over to you.
Hey, I'm Chris Moser, and I also work here at AOPA. I am a CFI and a musician, and I do other stuff, as you can see on there. And the big thing is we have our Flight Training Experience and Awards coming up early next year, so check out for that. And I also work with Pablo. I think next up is Steven.
Steven, say hello, Steven.
Apologies. Hello, Steven.
Hello, Steven.
Doing my thing. I do. I coordinate, help these guys out, and hopefully make things work without too much pokey technical difficulties. Thanks, Mark.
And remember, Steven's face will be revealed at 1 million subs. 1 million subs.
So just lurking back here. I actually did secure a surprise for today from our friends over at ASI. So.
Hey. All right.
Fantastic. Good. All right. So what do we have? Just tell us so that we know when to give it away.
Sure. I will bring it into Chris and he can show it off.
Fantastic. They're right next door to each other at AOPA. That's why he's going to walk it over there. So, wait, when will we see the handoff? Will we see a hand appear?
He's not here yet. But I tell you what,
yeah, Craig, let's get to you.
By the way, for Craig and Mark, we're really happy to have both of you guys here, but we're just going to go ahead and hit Alejandro's questions because you can just maybe do that during your intro. He is curious to know because Pablo and I have not flown out of the country. So this is where Craig and Mark, why they're on today. Oh, hold on a second. What is this? Ooh, look at that given to me for Steven. There it is. That will be available. Okay.
By the way, Johnny Collins was supposed to send me a hat and he never did. Let's just remind him. He promised.
Right. So Craig and Mark, when you do your intros here, would you mind telling us, just including part of that, what countries have you flown to, what time of the year, the type of airplane, and then what previous coordination and by whom? I'm not sure what you mean by that, Alejandro, but certainly we can have them talk about what countries maybe they've flown into and the types of airplanes. All right.
Okay.
Craig.
Okay, we get it. It's pretty simple for me. I'm Craig Brown. I'm a senior technical specialist here at AOPA. 25 years and been flying for about 38 years. As far as out of the country, I have flown to Canada, and that's the extent of my actual international travel. Quite a few times, summer, fall, early winter, and been a few years, but that's my experience with international flying.
Now, of course.
Otherwise, one of the main things I do here is keep all of our international information that you're going to see today up to date and current.
Yes, and in fact, you're going to see a ton, and that is Craig doing a lot of that. So, all right, and then we'll throw it over here. Mark, oops, that's it, Mark, that was your whole intro. Sorry. Go ahead.
Wow, you guys said a lot of nice things about me. Thank you. Mark Johnson, currently fly G5. Burn a lot of gas. Countries I've flown to is, we're going to Costa Rica I told you guys earlier, this Saturday for about, I don't know, 45 minutes, dropping some people off. It gets confusing on when we actually go there because it seems like all these international places we go to, it's hot, but then you come back home and it's cold. So all times of year, been to Mexico, Bahamas, Canada, St. John, haven't been over to England yet. So, but that's the extent of my international flying. So,
it's pretty good.
Good. Yeah, that's not bad. Not bad.
It's good enough, you know. So
good enough. We'll take that. Good enough is what we aim for. So well done. You're in the right place.
All right. Mark, by the way, I saw music education there too. I play music as well. We'll have to chat later. So, all right, let's get to this.
All right.
Pablo, most important
people
part
are
of this
asking about the hat. Well, hold on a second. I want a hat. Relax.
Not yet.
Not yet.
Soon.
I will surprise you. Papa Santa will surprise you. But be ready. Know where to hit that, because all of you that have asked, where's the hat? Okay. Very important reminders. This is the #1 question we get. Oh, this would be a good question later. However, I just gave it up. Wings credit. Yes, you get wings credit, but it has to be live. You have to be listening right now. Look at my finger live, okay? This isn't a recorded thing. You won't get it if it's recorded. Okay, that was annoying. So there's an email you registered for this webinar with. That is the one you will get credit with if you are with us live. Okay, you can also watch this because it is being recorded. Thank you. YouTube. Search for AOPA Live. Don't search for, don't get rusty. Search for AOPA Live. We are under that. Okay?
Actually, you know what? We have to fix that. I think it's AOPA Pilot now. It's what it's called under YouTube. Just look for AOPA on YouTube.
Oh, for Pete's sake. Just changed all the time. All right.
We've rebranded.
You can also go to aopa.org and look for webinars, and you'll see that at webinars.aopa.org. Okay, and that's where you'll get the recording. All right, next, please. As always, we like to warm it up a little bit with a little did we mention. So 17 November 1954, B-47 forced line bed letter remained aloft for 47 hours. Of course, with air-to-air refueling, there was no solar panels on the wings. In this case, it was all air refueling.
Yeah, it's a long flight.
Look at that one. It's pretty fantastic. So look that up. We like to give you cool stuff. Click, click. Thank you. Poll, as always, before we begin. Which of the following documents won't help you fly internationally? Think about this one. Think about it.
Yes. Which won't help you? So is it the private pilot certificate, your passport, your sport or student pilot certificate, aircraft registration certificate, or cold hard cash? Which will not help you fly internationally? We're waiting for the audience here to let us know.
I don't think it's right. We've screwed that one up, I think, possibly.
Steven,
do we have the old poll?
Yeah,
I think that's the old poll.
Abounding. That is the old poll.
It seems like we had some inattention there. Okay. Do you have it in there, Steven, or it's okay? We can skip past it.
I'm gonna have to go back into the settings and refresh that.
Okay. Let's not worry about it right now. But let's talk about. So the key part here is, in fact, if you want to just throw your answer, yeah, bad poll, we see it. Sorry, maybe just put your answers in the chat there on the questions. But why don't we talk about this a little bit?
You messed up. That was harsh. Very good.
So tell us though, Craig, I know there's something specific you wanted to talk about here too. What is the one here that will not help you fly internationally?
Will not is number 3.
And why is that?
You cannot fly internationally on a sport pilot certificate or a student pilot certificate. Actually, student pilot certificates specifically prohibited in our regulations. Sport pilot is only a U.S. thing. It's not recognized anywhere else in the world, so it has no international privileges. In fact, it has very few privileges anywhere, for that matter, outside the United States, that is.
Cool.
Very nice.
And so I know that we're going to talk about that passport thing a little later about how that might be useful. And I know both Mark and Craig had things about that, making sure the passport's there. And then even the cash, because I know that we'll talk about that later too. we're not encouraging ad hoc user fees, but more importantly, we'll talk later about how sometimes you might need it to pay for fuel. Need hard cash. So anyway, let's keep moving. Maybe Mark's got a story there for us. We'll see about the cold hard cash. All right, so what are we covering today? What we're going to do is I definitely want to point you, and there should be a handout available. In fact, let me just click and make sure that looks like it's good. That's the right handout. So definitely check out the handout, because as we mentioned, Craig here at AOPA is the one that maintains maintains a lot of the information, the web pages on international flying. And so there are links to every one of those. So we're not going to be able to go into detail about everything in every country that we maintain, but it's all there. So check it out. Tons of good information for flying. So that handout we'll refer back to. Just make sure you've got it, and you should be good to go. And if you're going to be listening to this later as a recording, it should be a link that should be posted in the YouTube description. Anyway, so that's what we're going to talk about. Here are the basic phases: prepping before you leave, actually leaving the U.S., what you're doing if you're going to fly within the country that you go to visit, coming back to the U.S., and then we'll talk about some of the resource coverages, other things we've got, and helpful tips. So let's get to this. So we get over to our special guests, Mark and Craig. So first of all, prepping for the flight when it comes to the person. Maybe Craig, if you might begin this with us, tell us a little bit about what the pilot and passenger should have.
Sure. Well, like you have up here, Chris, we're talking about people. So obviously the pilot's flying. That's the way to get there. Any individuals going with you, of course, passengers, requirements for them. Everybody needs a passport. There's no question about that. Used to be you could do it on a birth certificate up to a number of years ago. That was changed. Also, no passport cards for flying internationally. They work at the border, on the land and the sea, but not for flying. So everybody needs a passport. Our web pages, if you need one, you can check it out. I think I looked at it here recently, and I think anywhere from 6 to 9 weeks is processing time for a passport. So if you're planning on going to the Bahamas for Christmas and you don't have a passport, you're probably not going to the Bahamas for Christmas. So that's as simple as that.
Bad news.
When 2 years ago, in the middle of all the COVID and lockdowns, this was, I think, in the neighborhood of 18 to 20 weeks for processing. Could have even been longer than that, but for right now, I think reasonable 6 to 9 weeks or so. Pilot and medical certificates for the pilot. Of course, you need your original pilot certificate, no copies, no temporaries either. I could get into that, to a lot of detail, but just a little bit of detail. Temporary certificates are okay, but they're not the green card with Orville and Wilbur on it. So not every customs agent in the world is going to recognize a temporary pilot certificate. So best to have your plastic card. Radio station licenses, they come from our FCC, Federal Communications Commission. On our website, there's links to those applications. Don't quote me, but I think $160 is the current price, plus or minus a little bit. Make application, download, so they're relatively quick to obtain.
Cool.
Yeah, and then you have a letter of authorization. I guess that would depend on the country. I can't think of a specific example. Maybe Mark, if you've got something you could add for that. But I don't.
I'm not up on letter. I mean, we have letter of authorizations in the airplane, just specifically what those are, per country. I know that, my biggest thing is.
But just like a piece of paper then in a folder or something?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Country specific, so it goes with all your pre-flight checking with each country you're going to.
Right, and I think the basic thing I remember reading when researching this was, if you don't own the aircraft that you're flying, you need a letter of authorization from the owner saying it's okay for you to be operating the aircraft.
Okay, all right, that makes a lot more sense. Yeah, if you're flying, even if it's your own airplane and it's registered in, an LLC or a company name,
yes,
basically you write yourself a letter. If it's owned by somebody else, then you want to make sure you get a letter that states that you personally can fly this airplane or aircraft, and it should be N number, serial number, make and model, so identified pretty well. Where you can fly it, what country you're going to, and a time frame would be good. You know, like December of 2022, for example. So something like that. So when customs checks you in, of course, they're looking for any number of things, but they're looking for a stolen aircraft. So if you're flying something that's not registered to you, unless you can show otherwise, they'll have to assume you've stolen it, and you may not get very far.
That might be bad. That could be bad.
Might be bad, right? The similar thing over in the passengers, children with one parent, notarized letter. Another thing Customs is looking for is sex trafficking, child trafficking, abductions, things like that. So if you're one parent with a child, we're talking about under 18, of course, you need a notarized letter from the absent parent giving you permission to have that child out of the country to wherever you're going.
So we got one question popping up here. And by the way, more detail in those links in the handout, because I was just going through and pulling out common themes because I know we couldn't talk about every detail. But one question keeps popping up, I keep seeing, is basic med. Is basic med allowed to fly outside the country?
The general answer is no. No, because basic med here again is only a U.S. FAA issued or FAA recognized medical credentials, not even a certificate. So far, the countries of Mexico and the Bahamas have approved the use of basic med within their borders. Canada has not. So at least for our neighbors, the Bahamas and Mexico, it's okay to fly with basic med.
There you go. All right, and then Mark, I knew you said a thing about passports before you go to the next slide really quick. What was the deal with passports? Why is it important?
Don't forget your passport ever. Make sure if you have passengers, actually physically look at their passport. Oh yes, I have it in my pocket. Yes, so there's been some airplanes that have flown 10 or 12 hours somewhere in a foreign country, and the passengers did not have their passports with them. They realized it halfway across. And I don't think those passengers had an enjoyable 12 hours being interrogated by the in the other country. So, and these are people that do this all the time. Don't forget your passport. So it should be with your pilot's license and medical. So,
well, we have another one though that is again being, wow, this is amazing how many we're getting of the same one. It's like everyone's listening at the same time together. Everyone's talking now about the certificate issue. Well, I flew up there with I flew in Canada with a CFI, and I didn't have any problems, with a student certificate. So can you talk about that briefly? I mean, you're with a CFI, so that should be okay.
Yeah, that would be your PIC, wouldn't it?
Right. Yeah, that would be the pilot in command.
Right. So it wouldn't matter what credentials the other person has as far as pilot credentials. Not long as there's a pilot in command on board. There's only one.
Right. In the case of a student pilot, of course, that's exactly what's going to happen. If you're a student pilot and you're flying with a CFI, the CFI is your pilot in command. You're using their certificate.
Has to be correct. Now, both need passports, of course. No exceptions of that. But yeah, the other pilots on board are effectively passengers, and even for customs purposes, they're passengers.
Okay. All right, let's go ahead and keep this moving. So I know that I see tons of people talking about what about the stuff we've got it coming. Don't worry, prepping for the here's the aircraft.
Aircraft is coming.
Here's the aircraft right here, and there's two parts to it. So stand by. Go ahead.
Well, good. Here we're getting to the aircraft.
That's right.
Airworthiness certificate. All aircraft have one. You got to have one on board.
And that's permanent, right? Not temporary.
It is. Although, I think registration, you might be thinking temporary.
Yeah.
Airworthiness certificates are issued from FAA FSDO office, and they're original documents, but you can't have copies. You don't want to carry copies. So you certainly want to make sure it's on board. The registration certificate. That is the card that comes from the FAA aircraft registry after you purchase, you submit your paperwork, you get the card. The 8050-3, that has to be on board. A lot of the older pilots remember the pink slips from way back in the day, because the registration application used to have a white, a green, and a pink copy, and the pink was a temporary. Those are no more. Those are long gone. And now it's just a download an application, complete it, make a copy of it, and then put the copy in the airplane. You send the original off to aircraft registry in Oklahoma City. But the temporary is not valid for international travel. That's the key point to take away here. You must have the original registration card.
Cool. And then as we keep moving on too, I know that we have the pilot has an FCC radio license that you have to have for yourself. And then the airplane needs it's like a radio station license, that certificate as well.
Right. The aircraft has a radio station license, and that's the one we talked about. Just actually, I made a mistake earlier. The restricted radio telephone operator's permit is what I was referring to on the last slide for the pilot. The radio station license is for the aircraft, and it's good for 10 years or until the aircraft is sold. So it's valid until it's sold or 10 years expires. So I saw one question on there. It's not valid forever. If you had one from 1980s, it's long ago expired. Has to be updated.
And there's some people starting to jump ahead, like to the registration mark. People, like a hospital, we need more patients. I've been saving that. All right, everybody, it's getting there. If it's on the list, we're getting there. Okay, please.
All right. So I know that with the obviously the couple of easy ones are like you need to have your pilot operating handbook for the airplane and the weight and balance. That is not the weight and balance that you have calculated, but the actual weight and balance stuff done by a mechanic, right? It says what the weight and balance is. Then we jump to say life vest and flotation device. This is what for the Bahamas. Is that correct?
That's correct, right? Yeah, here in the U.S., we don't have any requirements for private aircraft over water flying. Once you leave the U.S. border, the Bahamian civil aviation law requires at least a flotation device for each person on board. You don't need a raft, not required, but a life vest is. Now, you don't have to wear them. They don't have to be worn while you're flying in their airspace, but they do have to be available. It's like boating. As long as you have it on board for certain individuals, you're all right. And the case here, as long as you have it on board, you're fine.
Cool. And then somebody was saying, of course, the ID data plate. I'm not sure where this would be on a Gulfstream, but typically on the tail, the empennage of the aircraft, the data plate needs to be there. So it'd be kind of odd to the airplane not to have one, I guess. But what about these questions? We got somebody asking the question about the 12-inch registration marks. So
Right. Yeah, that's a requirement. Now, talking about our neighbors here, we have Canada to the north, Mexico south, Bahamas out to the southeast. When you travel into Mexico and the Bahamas, you cross the ADIS, which is our Air Defense Identification Zone. Crossing through the ADIS requires the 12-inch registration marks. You can go to Canada without, but going to Mexico or the Bahamas, it's a requirement. They can be temporary. There are like vinyl numbers, letters you can purchase to put on the aircraft, like tape, and for temporary use, and that's okay.
Okay, that's good to know. And then finally, transponder typically required, which is odd, but I know we're going to come up in a second here with ADS-B, but the transponder not necessarily required. Actually, the transponder is required. ADS-B not necessarily yet, depending on where you're going. So, details. Okay. All right, let's go to just the second one here. There's ADS-B, so it's right now Mexico only if you're flying there. So nowhere else is required. Is that correct? At least the place close by.
Right. That's correct.
Someone asked, what is an ID data plate?
Oh.
And that's Roberto. Let's give him credit. Roberto, good question.
It's good. Yeah, it comes from the manufacturer. It's somewhere on the airplane, like Chris mentioned. It could be on the tail. It could be on the tail feathers. Some of them might be on the door jamb, certain airplanes. Just depends. But it's the manufacturer, the make, the model, where it was manufactured. So it's an official emblem from the manufacturer that this is actually a real production aircraft, and it's as it came from the factory. It's not pieced together, like experimentals. Experimentals don't have those. That's different. We should note that that's for a production aircraft.
Cool. All right. So
All
then
right, someone else
ADSB.
asked hold on,
Good.
12-inch numbers. Someone says they think they're grandfathered though if it's original. How about Canada? I mean, we're really
No,
not working Canada here, but
Canada doesn't have, there's no requirement for the 12-inch numbers to cross the border into Canada. That's for the Bahamas and Mexico. You may be thinking that if you have an older airplane, 30 years or older, the regulations do permit you to have smaller numbers, 2 or 3-inch numbers. All that's fine, but not for crossing the ATIS. You've got to have the 12-inch numbers. Regardless of what you have on the aircraft right now, you must have the 12-inch numbers to go to Mexico or to Bahamas.
Okay. All right. So let's get into, ADSB, and I see somebody's been asking a question specifically about it. And don't forget, in the handout, we've got lots of details depending on the country. It's all country specific. Like I said, we can't necessarily cover all of that here just for the sake of time, but check that out. But maybe we can answer that question with the ADSB. The person's asking, is it 1090 or is it 978 okay? Is what they're asking about. So what's the deal with the ADSB for Mexico? You don't need this yet for Canada or the Bahamas yet.
Right. Bahamas have no mandate. Canada does. They've recently announced it, but it's a phase in over the next couple years. But for Mexico, they started beginning of this year. ADSB is required, and it must be 1090, the extended squitter. Can't be the 978 like the tail beacons or the wingtip beacons. Those are not approved for Mexico. The 978 UAT, which is the Universal Access Transmitter, that is U.S. only. So that's not an international standard. The 1090 is the international standard.
Okay, so it sounds like the 1090 is what you need. If you're going to fly using extra tanks or any kind of modification, especially like things like ferry tanks or whatever, got to have your Form 337. Maybe we need to explain that, what the Form 337 is for.
Yeah, that's a FAA form for major repairs or alterations. And you hit the nail on the head there, Chris. If you have extra fuel tanks in the passenger compartment, we're not talking about extra wing tanks or locker tanks, which are behind the engine nacelles or anything like that. This would be fuel tanks in the baggage area, in the passenger or the car or in the cabin somewhere. And it's pretty common if you're making long distance flights in small aircraft. It's pretty common, but it's also a great place to store drugs. So it has to be legitimately installed, and that's why the Form 337 is required. So, is it really a fuel tank? Is what Customs is wondering.
Right.
Or you've got something else hiding in there.
So 2 things, just to go back for a moment, because this is lighting up like never before. Keep them coming, folks. I love it. Okay, so people are saying that your passport has to be 6 months from expiration. Is that true?
That would depend on the country you're going to. Yeah, some countries require that your passport be valid for 6 months. Yeah, beyond your stay. Right. In other words, can't be real close or expired while you're there. But the answer to that depends on the country.
And Mark said you're saying the agent as well.
Mexico specifically.
I asked an agent that question. I think it was Canada. He said, you don't want, basically what you said, Craig, you don't want it to expire while you're there. So I'm not, the feeling I get is there's no hard and fast rule out there on that, but I would stick with the 6 months probably to be safe.
Okay.
So.
And secondly, the one I'm getting, which they're literally saying, you are wrong, Craig.
Okay.
The experimentals don't require a data plate. That is incorrect. Retort, Craig.
I'd have to check that out. I don't know for sure.
Okay, fantastic. Yeah. We've stumped the Schwab. Fantastic.
Yeah.
Way to go.
By the way, this might be a good opportunity to mention too.
If experimental has one, well, or if the manufacturer, being the builder, has to put one on there, I don't know much about experimentals. I'll be honest.
So the way to find that out for sure, we can find out is Craig, of course, works in our Pilot Information Center, and as he is, which I love about him, and he will not make up answers. So if he doesn't know, but he can find out for you. So yeah, give us a call at 1-800-USA-AOPA. and we can find that out for you. All right.
This is turned into an infomercial. I love it.
Really? No kidding. So how about insurance? It's like, I know that I know some countries, I believe it's Mexico, requires insurance for Mexico. Can you guys help us with that? What's the deal with that? Is getting country specific insurance?
Coverage for the country or in that region is what you want to check for. In other words, check your insurance policy to be sure you'd be covered in Mexico or in Canada or Bahamas or wherever you happen to be going.
Okay, so check it there. So
all right, hold on. Got another one. They're hitting me hard now. I shouldn't have asked them to keep coming. So the radios have been a big question as well. Radio licenses. Do they expire? I got mine in '84. Does it expire? I wasn't aware it needed to have my name on it. How do I get it changed? Somebody that purchased an aircraft a year ago, do they contact the FAA? So name on license, expirations, can we please cover that so that, I'm getting hammered.
Yeah, the radio station. Sorry for your bad luck there, Pablo.
Yeah, I get paid for this, it's okay.
There you go. The radio station license is, it's Federal Communications Commission, so it's FCC. FAA has nothing to do with it. They don't issue them. They don't regulate them. It's all FCC in our country, of course. It is required for international travel. They dropped the requirement for domestic use back in the late 90s. So the problem is now most aircraft flying around here in the country today don't have one, because they're not required to. But when you go across the border, the ICAO, the International Civil Aviation regs you need a radio license. Some countries you go to may require a radio license. For Bahamas, for example, they require, their civil aviation law requires it. It's an online application. Like I mentioned earlier, it's about $160. It's a download and print, usually afterwards, after you make the application. It's good for 10 years. Or until the aircraft is sold. So if you sell it, it doesn't transfer to the new owner. That's the key. If you have one from the 80s, 90s, even the first decade of this century here, they're all expired. So if you have anything old, you just apply for a new one.
There it is.
Does that help?
Yeah, it should. And trust me, we'll find out.
We'll find out.
So I see some stuff coming in about the insurance too, and people have it. The big thing is you want to make sure that your insurance covers you. And I know that I believe on our website it mentioned something about even if your insurance does cover you, that you might want a letter from your insurance carrier stating that for that country, just so you can prove that yes, I'm insured in your country, as I recall.
Yeah, countries also have a requirement that you have to carry the proof of insurance with you. Not just that you carry it, but you carry proof of it. Have your I forget the name of the page on the insurance, but all the coverages that are provided, and carry that with you as part of your aircraft documentation.
That's
like we have right here.
Page. Your declaration page or
declaration page, right? That's it.
I'd like to hopefully put an end to the data plate issue. We're back to that. EAA says you are required to have a data plate on your amateur-built aircraft, but you are not required by regulation to have a data plate or any identification on your engine. This regulatory requirement can be found at 14 CFR Part 45. I'll slow down so you can write that down. Identification and registration markings. Paragraph 45.1 is where your applicability actually states, and everything else in that 45. So I've also put the link in the Q&A that I answered. So please go there and let's move forward, shall we?
Sure.
Okay. All right. So, and then we know that we've got other documentation in Mexico. I didn't want to write all that on because obviously there's a lot of stuff. We want to keep moving. Check out the handout, go to that link for Mexico, or give us a call at the PIC, 1-800-USA-AOPA. There's a whole list of all the things you would need in Mexico. The last one in here, so we can move on, is the current charts. I believe this was Mexico, if I'm not mistaken, required current charts. I don't know if you guys can help out. They were asking if it's digital, is it paper? I just remember reading, I think it was paper for some reason, but maybe it is just digital as well. What's the deal with flying for that? Do you guys remember?
Yeah. Paper charts are pretty much gone away as far as everyday use for most pilots. I don't know of any country that around here in North America that requires a paper chart, as long as you have current valid charts of any kind.
Okay. And then same experience, Mark, with that too, or all good?
If we have paper charts, I have no idea where they are on the airplane. So.
Great. Okay, let's see if we can move on to the next one here. Now, this is I know one that I remember when I used to work in the PIC, which has been years ago, of course, now, but it was always one that always got me a little bit like, oh, I don't fully understand this, but this whole thing with Customs and Border Patrol and EAPIS and everything. So help us to understand that and dealing with this, any tips you might have.
Mm-hmm. Actually, you're talking about paperwork here on this one, and just to back up one step, Chris, what would be a good idea, totally optional, for international travel, get a manila folder or a little bank envelope, something like that, and put everything in that one location. You know, the aircraft documents, the pilot, the passengers, put everybody's documentation in one place so you have it. Because when you hit the ramp and Customs wants to see everything, last thing you want to do is be fumbling all over the aircraft looking for stuff. So, as a little side note, but on the Customs and Border Patrol here, you have the annual user fee decal. That is basically, that's Customs fee for providing their service for aircraft returning to the U.S. Only for U.S. aircraft, not for foreign aircraft coming to the United States. It's for aircraft that are based here. You go out of the country, you come back in, you have to clear Customs. The user fee decal basically lets the officers know that you've paid your duty for the privilege of them checking you back into the country. and it works if it's good for a calendar year, so it works one time or 300 times, however many times you come back in the country. It's the same fee, and it's roughly about $31 right now. And you can buy the 2023 decals currently.
All right, cool. And then how about the EAPIS thing where I know that you're typing it, that's an online thing, obviously because it's electronic.
It is, yeah. And basically that is your itinerary. You're telling U.S. Customs who you are, who's traveling with you, what aircraft you're in, where you're going, what country, why you're going there, when you plan on coming home. So you're giving them all the details about your international flight before you even go. Important note here is you have to file one to leave the country and get an okay, get an email authorization to leave the country. You also need to file a second one for your return back to the U.S. So one flight, two EAPIS filings.
Okay, and I know we'll talk about that for returning to the country. And I know Mark too. I know that you've talked about. Yeah, you don't have to do this too much, right? Because it's a recommendation of maybe getting somebody to help you with this, with filing and all this paperwork and everything. I think you're.
So
there you go.
Yeah, all the flying we do, we have a service does all this stuff. So I would, if you're willing, I would hire them. What Craig said, he said, get all your documents in one envelope. When you show up, if you appear organized and you know what you're doing, you're much easier. Doesn't matter going or coming, And I don't know where that is. And these, they're very nice because they do it every day, but everything. Just be organized and you will be fine. So
there it is. Good. And then, of course, filing a flight plan. It's the ICAO flight plan, which we're using in the United States now anyway. So just make sure you're filing that. All right. Now,
hold on.
The old FAA flight plan is now gone. So no, we don't use that anymore.
Go, Pablo.
Is it required to enter Canada? Is a flight plan required to enter Canada?
It's required to cross the border. Yes.
Okay,
91.
All the way north?
No, crossing the border. 91.707 is the reg. So yeah, you need one to cross the border both directions.
In fact, we've got that on this slide right here. So when you're going to depart the U.S., here are the basic things. It's like, this is just for the US side of things. I know, because there's other, we're going to talk on the next slide about going into whatever the country you're going to. So obviously need to have a squawk code assigned from ATC. You need to be in contact with ATC, which seems pretty straightforward. But how about, this is the special part with this flight plan, maybe you can talk to us about this IFR or a defense VFR, DVFR plan. So what's the deal here?
Yeah, that's for the southern border. So if you're going to Mexico or heading over to the Bahamas, you have to be IFR or DVFR flight plan, because both of those flights will go through the Air Defense Identification Zone. And basically, that's a 15-minute notification ATC that you're going to cross. So IFR, obviously, that's an automatic thing. VFR, you have to establish that. And you have to establish contact with ATC.
So
Going
to
across
Canada then? Or?
Yeah, we don't have an ATIS with the Canadian border, but you still have the requirement to talk to some ATC facility. It could be approach, departure, it could be a center, doesn't matter. Get a squawk code and go across the border. Otherwise, any trip across the border without communication with ATC and a squawk code could invite an intercept.
Okay. And then what about the flight plan going to Canada? Do you need a flight plan if you're flying to Canada? Let's say you're talking to ATC, you got your squawk code. Do you have to have a flight plan on file to go there?
You still have to file a flight plan.
Okay. There it is.
Yep.
All right. Now, oops, didn't mean to do that.
And real quick.
Yeah.
Sorry. We also have people talking about, well, okay, everything's cool about leaving, but what do we do on the way back? This is an engaged audience.
It's coming. We're trying to get there. All right. We're
not coming back. We're not coming back.
This is it. It's one-way trip. That's for the
These are one-way trips, people.
That's why your passport better be really, really not far out. All right. So now when you go to land in your destination country, wherever it may be, one of the big things I saw as a common theme was land at an airport of entry. By the way, this is going to be the same thing coming back to the U.S., right? Because is it bad to not land at an airport of entry? Or sorry, is it bad to land at something other than?
Well, it could be. It could be, yes. But find a port of entry. You plan your flight to. You always plan your flight to land at some airport. Same thing with international. Plan for a port of entry, and you can find those on the charts. They're in the flight guides. Our website has ports of entry for Canada, Mexico, Bahamas, so you can easily find a port of entry.
Cool. And Mark, you were about to say something about that as well.
Oh yeah. I wouldn't gamble on going to a non-port of entry airport. So I'm not sure that would be an enjoyable experience. So
I'm going to venture to say that Mark would say, in his professional opinion, that would be bad.
I'm sorry, what?
I was going to say, you'll see a picture later on of exactly what you might expect.
That's right. It's coming up. It's coming up.
I think you have that picture in there, Chris, with the King Air.
Yes, it's coming up for the return.
Right.
All right. It's 3 slides. One of the things, of course, you're going to have to do is of course, AOPA focuses on Canada, Mexico, the Bahamas, in the stuff that we maintain. But you got to clear customs when you get there. Correct, right? So it's like it's CAN pass for Canada, APIS for Mexico. You need a flight plan for the Bahamas, and you're going to talk to customs when you get there. Tips on that? I know both Mark and Craig, you've got tips on that. What's the deal here when you're going to clear customs to the country you're visiting?
Or coming back?
Actually, going to the country, like getting to Mexico or someplace like that. I know coming back we'll talk about. We've got that as a whole separate thing.
Yeah. I guess don't forget that you have to clear customs. We landed once and we were trying to go to the FBO. Luckily, the agent, the line guy, was like, we were so busy. It's like, oh yeah, we have to clear customs. So try to remember that you have to clear customs, and when you get there, don't open the door till they show up and tell you to open the door. So they're in charge.
Cool. And I know that I have this note on here too. Don't forget how to behave. Mark, that was one from talking to you, from both you guys. In fact, I know Craig has a story too. We probably don't have time to do it, at least right now.
No.
What's this idea? How should we be behaving?
Just to be on your best, humility, your best behavior, and yes sir, yes ma'am, no sir. I taught my kids when I learned how to drive. When they learned how to drive, you tell the police officer, "Yes, sir. Yes, ma'am. No, sir. No, ma'am. And thank you." You just be as nice as you can, because if you cop an attitude, things are going to go downhill from there. Remember,
no attitude at all.
Well, within reason.
The Canadians will probably be better with attitude, right?
Actually, yeah, I don't know. One of you guys had a story about that too. It was like talking about how they were really serious in Canada. I had that issue just driving in a car. They're not messing around.
So, and real quick, and I know we're running real quick. So this is funny. I taught you guys how I entered Canada on my motorcycle because I was going to Alaska from Chicago, right? Funny thing is in the Alaskan city that I was going to, there is no customs going into Alaska from Canada. Literally, it's an open border. But coming back, there's a little shack with 2 little agents from Canada. And I did this trip back and forth like 10 times. And each time they were like, they'd never seen me before. Hello, may we see your, I'm like, oh God, do you have anything with you? And they'd, anything, like, okay, Canada, give me a break. I'm going to tell the system, come on. You've seen me 15 times today. Anyway, so yes, that's where a little attitude's okay.
A little bit.
All right. And then the last part we've got here too is this, on this slide at least, may need to validate foreign flight authority. I got that off the website. I don't remember exactly what that meant, but it's basically carry copies of, you're going to potentially have fees inside arriving in the country. Make sure you bring potentially your own tie downs and security locks to keep your airplane secure. Itinerary of the flights that you might be doing within that country. Copies of the pilot and aircraft documents as well. I think I got that off the Mexico one, is what I recall when I was pulling these notes. Does that sound all right?
It does.
Okay.
Good advice.
All right, cool.
Okay, so 2 things too. One, we keep talking about going to, landing, departing, all that stuff. What if you're just transiting? Perhaps straight legs.
Look at this. The next slide happens to be in country and overflights.
Yeah. Secondly, someone did ask a very good question, which I think this was probably obvious, but if you do give them an attitude and they don't like you, it can go very expensive, right? I mean, it can really be a improper paperwork. We have to charge you, right? I mean, it's not like they're going to arrest you. They could, I guess. But,
well, they could.
Right?
They could impound your airplane. They could seize it. They could arrest the pilot. It could get bad. Yeah. So it's best to cooperate. And I always tell folks, customs is the deputy sheriff. They're not the welcome wagon. So they come out with mace and sidearms. They don't come out with their arms open and a bouquet of flowers. So
that's right.
You just act accordingly.
No flowers.
Accordingly. All right, so let's talk about, I tried to summarize the stuff because there's a good bit. It depends on the country that you're going to here, but for in-country and overflights. So generally speaking, and maybe Craig, you can help out, or both you guys, for flying within the country, but you can see the major things I've got here. Flight plans are typically recommended, maybe not always required. You probably need to find that out. Sometimes you might need a permit, right, to fly. So do you want to try to hit some of these? Just give us some of the highlights here.
Yeah, like just very briefly, Canada has a flight plan or a flight locating requirement. So if you're going from A to B in Canada, once you fly and land there and you clear in, you're free to travel throughout the country. But Canada has a flight plan or flight locating requirement. Permits, like cruising permits, they're required in the Bahamas. Flight plans may be required. So you just have to learn each country you're going to, what their specifics are. Here in the U.S., we can fly across country and we don't need a flight plan. But in other countries, you may need a flight plan to go from A to B. You might need a flight plan from the terminal airport, the bigger airports. You might need a permit of some kind. So I think the takeaway is make sure you know what you need wherever you happen to be. It's not just as simple as jumping in and going.
Right.
That way.
And in some of the countries too, and I seem to recall Canada, but I know you'll know this better than I do. VFR, you might not be able to fly at night on VFR, a VFR pilot certificate, correct?
Yeah, even though it's permitted here in the States, Mexico doesn't allow it and the Bahamas don't allow it. There are a few exemptions. Mexico, there's 6 border airports that you could literally jump across to the U.S. border. But, otherwise, no VFR night in Mexico, no VFR night in Bahamas. Canada, I'm not aware of any specific prohibition, though.
All right, and then I know that I saw the recommendation there that cash for fuel purchases, depending on where you're going, it might be a airport farther out, and Mark's even nodding his head here. So sometimes you have to have cash to pay for the fuel, correct? It's like you're not going to necessarily be able to use a credit card or something.
Yeah, cash is, yes. Have some cash.
Cash is king.
So,
cash is king.
Yeah. Even for filing a flight, you need cash. So.
All right, we got to keep moving, huh? We do
got to keep moving. Yeah, let's keep going. Right, the only other parts are just some other things. Just be aware that there may be fees, and know your in some cases there are mandatory frequencies that you have to be talking on. So be aware of that. Again, check the handout. Go to those links. Depending on where you're hoping to go, it has more specific stuff. This is kind of me pulling stuff together to try to smush them together into one presentation. But check those things out for the specific place you might be going. All right. Now, there's 2 steps to going home, right? You've got leaving the country that you've been visiting, and then the next slide is the one for actually coming back and landing in the U.S.
Right.
2 different things.
Now this one's important, though, and I got to say this. You have to look good when you're leaving. And what better way to prove that with a safety hat from ASI? Who wants it? First person in. First person in. First person in. All right, keep going. Chris will announce it as soon as I get it.
So there may be some, and again, please help me out here, you guys. There may be paperwork that you've had to have carried around with you in the country, and you have to return that paperwork potentially before you depart for the U.S. Fees may be required for what you've flown, correct? So maybe Craig, you want to go through some of those, and then Mark jump in as well?
Yeah, just real brief with our neighbors. With Canada, you can just go. They don't have any specific requirements for departing. You're free to go. Mexico, you have to clear out, and the Bahamas, you have to clear out. In other words, you have to actually go to an AOE, which would be an airport of exit in this case, same as an airport of entry, and turn in your paperwork and whatever permits you have to customs prior to leaving the country.
Cool. So the paperwork done, ICAO flight plan going to be required across the border. And in the case of the southern part, flying across the air defense identification zone, it's got to be an IFR or a defense VFR flight plan. Of course, ATC. Now let's start prepping this part for getting back to the US. So there's the part of doing your paperwork with the country you're leaving, but the hat is done. Do you want to talk about it, Pablo, before I jump into this next part?
No, Vaughn Henry got it. So
all right, cool.
That's awesome.
All right, we got it right here for you, Vaughn. We'll get that out. All right.
That's right.
So you need, maybe you guys can help me with this part. It's the part of, obviously you're going to talk in ATC, but you've got to now notify Customs and Border Patrol ahead of time for the air, and AOE is airport of entry, by the way. I was trying to abbreviate to keep it from getting too long.
Right.
So what's the deal here?
Yeah, with U.S. Customs and you're returning, you have the AOPA, the electronic passenger manifest we talked about earlier. That's your second filing for your return to the U.S. But you also call the actual border port, the customs at the port of entry, to effectively be sure that they will be available to check you in at your time of arrival, because you don't want to show up when no customs is there.
Okay, so they're not just always there waiting. You need to arrange this. Correct.
There are some exemptions. If it's a 24-hour international airport, customs is always available. In that case, not required. But most customs airports, at the user fee and landing right airports, or with customs, they're not always there. They don't staff at 24 hours. Some of them they work 8 to 5, Monday through Friday, like a lot of folks do. So you have to make sure they'll be there, especially after hours through the week and on the weekends.
Okay. And then the other part being, of course, it's 1 to 23 hours. So it's not like you can't do this. Oh, I'm going to get this ready for Monday and it's Saturday. It's got to be, you've got to call them basically right before you're right around when you're leaving or shortly before that.
Shortly before. Yeah. Ideally, if it's more than an hour flight, you do it before you either get to the airport or certainly before you get in the aircraft to take off.
Okay.
But you could do it 23 hours is so that it's not a full day ahead.
Right.
So whatever time it is now, you can add 23 hours, and that's for tomorrow. That would be the latest time you could arrive.
Okay. So just arranging all that ahead of time. And I know, Mark, probably for your flying, this is stuff that's been done for you by the company. Do you?
Yeah. If we're coming late, we will make a phone call. So
okay.
Or just verify that they're going to be there, basically.
And then check this out. Here's our next slide, the one we were talking about. So the deal here is obviously you're landing back in the U.S. It needs to be at this port of entry, like we said so many times. But give us I know you guys both have experience with this. You want to taxi up to the customs office. So tell us about this. Stay in the airplane. And I know that there's a note here about this. Know your time of arrival. It's important.
Yeah, later is definitely better. So. And
why is that? So I guess to make sure that they're there, or what's the
early? I mean, everybody. Is anybody really ever early for a reason? Not in my small world, but why are you showing up early? Are you trying to get rid of something out of the airplane before you're, that I can see that being a red flag. So
yeah, you show up before the agents show up.
Yeah, and you don't want that to happen. That's
right.
Bad. Okay.
Yeah, just like that picture, you don't want to see that when you arrive.
Yeah, this would be
you don't even have to shut down. You already know you're in trouble.
Yeah.
Exactly. Maybe just take off again. No, don't do that, Don. Okay. That's bad. All right, so make sure you're going there, follow the directions, and then we got all this information. It's all detailed on each of those sections on our website. We've got lots of stuff available on AOPA. So Craig, I know you're the one that kind of maintains a lot of this for AOPA. So tell us a little bit more about what we've got available for our folks.
Okay. Yeah, actually there are, there's a half a dozen pages, one specifically for Canada, one for Mexico, one for the Bahamas. The Caribbean in general is covered, as well as Bermuda and Central America. But just a disclaimer, the only Canada, Mexico, and the Bahamas we actually keep up to date current travel information for. The other pages are good, they're informational, but we don't necessarily keep up to date on all the specific requirements for flying into Central America or the other islands in the Caribbean, all the nation islands down to South America. We do have third-party information, like you see here, CST Flight Services as an example. Those are trip handlers, flight planners. They'll plan a trip for you. They'll arrange customs. They'll arrange fuel, ground handling, transportation, pay your fees. Of course, you pay them a fee for the service, but they do all the work for you. And if you're going any place that we don't cover or that you're not familiar with, make use of a third-party company. That's what they do. They're experts. They do it all day in and day out.
All right, and Mark, I see you're nodding your head to the other two. You want to add on to that?
Yeah, big fan. So, yeah, especially if you're a first timer, you're not sure, hire a third party to do all that stuff for you. So it's going to be more expensive, but it could save you a big headache in the long run. So that all our stuff is done on a third party. So, and we get a stack of papers, and I'm a big fan.
Yep. So there it is from experience. That'll definitely help you out. And then the last bit, some helpful tips. As you guys have mentioned, I know you guys have mentioned humility is kind of important here. You want to explain that, what you mean by that? And then the passports thing.
Yeah, you might have a random customs agent that, I don't know, whatever. So just be humble. So if, went to Canada once, they said, let me talk to you after you get rid of after your passengers disembark. Okay, fine. What's your name? Where are you from? Okay, whatever. I could have, why are you asking me questions? Well, there's another Mark Johnson that gives a lot of problems in Canada, but you're okay. Thank you very much. So just let's say humility.
Yeah, to prove who you were.
Yes or no, sir. It goes a long. Yeah, and that's a good example. So, but yeah, just be nice. And don't forget your passport.
And don't forget your
Don't
passport.
forget your passport.
All right, and then of course the other thing I know that you guys have already hit on a whole bunch is don't try to do it by yourself. Get help. These third-party things, yeah, they might cost a little bit of money, but it'll save you a lot, especially if it's your first time, because they have done it a lot of times. I know we mentioned CST. There's other ones as well. Just happens to be the one that AOPA works with is why we mentioned that specifically.
Right.
Okay. I think let's go to the official end and then we'll take these questions. The official end of the webinar. So here is your AOPA app and pilot passport. Remember, if you are here for Wings credit, you do not need to do anything. As long as you registered for the webinar using your email that you use for FAAsafety.gov, you're good to go. We'll take care of it. You're covered. But this is something separate. Stephen, do you want to tell us a little bit about the AOPA app and pilot passport? This is a different, by the way, this does not count as your international passport. Go ahead.
I will do my best. The AOPA pilot passport is a function within the AOPA app, and they took it from the idea of the passports you can do like by flying onto different airports in different states and getting the stamps. So this is a digital version of that. You can check in different airports, you earn points and badges, and occasionally our marketing folks will do some drawings and contests for people who earn points at different stops and things. So I think there's a bingo one going on right now. So putting in the code for today's thing will count for 1,000 points, earn you a unique badge for our show.
Cool. And you can see it's just YCF, that's You Can Fly, web or webinar, and then 11/17/22. It's just the date, November 17th, 2022. All right, Pablo, what are you saying?
Nothing. I was just saying, yeah.
Okay, he's agreed.
All right, Q&A time.
So there's that
next slide.
That's just sort of the official end. We are going to stick around and answer some questions, and then we've got tons that came in. Next episode, you want to take it, Pablo?
Yeah, man. December 15th, the Christmas Spectacular. We will be, I don't know, maybe cooking some chestnuts, fireplace, maybe a Christmas suit. Stay tuned. It's big. And I know we'll have giveaways. I just don't know what they will be yet. So maybe some more of those cool ASI hats. So stick around. And there'll be more than one for sure. So we'll have several things, I think. I know we'll have at least a couple of hats. So riddle me this. Best questions from 22. It is an extravaganza, as I said, because we'll be talking about some of the best questions we've had. Maybe not so much the repetitive ones, but maybe, because if they're asked a lot, maybe we have to re-answer them. But and unfortunately, like today, we will not get to all of your questions. There's so many of them, and we appreciate those. So it's really our chance to cover those things that we haven't been able to talk about or answer just because there were so many things. So this one's for you guys.
All right, awesome. So let's go back to the questions then. We've got Craig and Mark here, obviously a wealth of information. So hit us up. What are the questions, Pablo?
Oh my goodness, so many. And wait, Christmas, of course, Paul would say Christmas gifts. That's what he woke up for, Christmas gifts. Okay. All right, so we talked about basic med. Will it work to Mexico? Can we just reiterate that FAA, this is an FAA thing, not an international thing, so it will not work going north, south, or anywhere outside the U.S. border, correct?
Yeah, and that was again basic med.
Correct.
Yeah, that's true, unless the country in question has approved it, which Bahamas and Mexico have. But otherwise, just flying to a country on basic med, you're taking a gamble because you don't know.
Okay.
And it is a U.S. Medical credential, so it's not recognized, not ICAO standards, not recognized in most anywhere else in the world, but at least two of our neighbors have approved it.
Cool.
All right, cool.
All right, so we've got, wow, 1, 2, 3, 4, passport code on the screen. Don't need to rehash that one. There it is. Please follow that. Good question on animals. What if you bring an animal across the border?
Yeah, that's a good one, but I have to throw that in the bucket of check the country you're going to. Because some countries flat out do not allow it. Others do, but you have to have a vet visit and vaccination proof within a certain period of time. It just depends on the country. So check before you go. I don't know if we've actually got anything on pets in our web pages. In fact, I don't think that we do.
I don't recall seeing that. Yeah, I didn't see that.
But it's unique to every country, and you need to check before you go. But I would I would say it, but just taking your pet without doing anything is probably a bad choice.
Okay. Yeah, you're right. No matter what it is.
Right. Pets on the jet for people.
Even coming into the U.S., there's requirements on pets. Yeah. So, yeah, every country has them.
We haven't done pets, but I thought of food. Food can be an issue, especially live food. So coming back, that fruit fly. So if they ask you, do you have food, you need to discard it properly. So just made me think of that. So
okay.
That's a good one.
Food process thinks that's a big deal, but yeah, they want to stop bugs flying back and forth. So
that's a good one. Thank you. So I watched a lot of Nat Geo, and with the pet thing, some countries do also require quarantine. So if you take them, it's like a 2-week quarantine where you can't get the dog out for 2 weeks. They have to stay with customs, immigration, if they don't have a passport, I guess. I don't know. But so yeah, so that's a good one. All right, next. Fees. We keep talking about fees. Fees. Someone says there's lots of fees in Canada. Can we maybe talk about that? Someone said that there's a fee just for talking to ATC.
Oh, okay, yeah. I'm trying to think fees here. Nav Canada is the ATC provider in Canada, and it's a private company. It's not a government entity like our FAA. So yeah, once you flip the switch and talk to a Canadian air traffic controller, they're going to charge you. The good news is for small GA airplanes, it's a quarterly type billing arrangement, and it's only on the average of about $18 or $19 Canadian per quarter. And that's up to 2 metric ton airplanes, up to 4,400 pounds. You get up to higher, 6,600 pounds, it's more. Above that, and Mark can probably verify, you get into jets and heavier airplanes, not only do you pay ATC fees for the use of it, you also pay route fees. You pay fees for how long you travel in Canada. So it could get expensive, but in small GA airplanes, it's an added expense, but it's not a deal breaker.
Okay, that's a good one. Thank you.
Otherwise, I don't know of any other fees for Canada.
Okay.
Are there landing fees like there are?
Yeah.
Landing
Mark,
fee, well, that would depend on the airport, just like here in the U.S. There may or may not be.
I'm sure there's landing fees.
Yeah. Yeah, because someone asked, are landing fees waived for international flights?
No.
I don't think so.
No,
and they also asked about international airports and yeah, exactly. Well, they see a big G something coming in.
Right.
I'm getting mine.
Right.
I'm getting mine. All right, so there's that one. All right, moving on. Transit Canada, we already talked about it. Hopefully that was answered. Flying out and back, we talked about documents. If anyone has a question about specific documents about coming back and stuff, let us know. Covered that one. Radio licenses, God, I got so many of those. So this person said they've never been asked for the radio license flying at north or south of the border. Comments on that? Is it always a thing? Is it mandatory always, or is it just depending on if they ask or not? It's still mandatory, but depending on if they ask or not.
Well, yeah, and our line has to be here. It's required. I mean, I can't tell some. Here's the deal with Canada. The U.S. does not have a radio license requirement for its pilots. Canada doesn't have a radio license requirement for its pilots. So you're going from one country that doesn't require it to another country that doesn't require it, but you cross an international border, which does. That's an ICAO, an international flight. And that says you need a radio station license. So that's a tough one with Canada because neither country requires it, but I can't tell somebody, yeah, don't worry about it, because if you get checked and you get a ding for not having one, our information says you need one, and you do. Bahama civil aviation law has a requirement for a radio station license, pilot operating license. Mexico has requirements. So that's all I can add to that one, Pablo. It is an international travel requirement. So yes, you should have one.
That's all that's necessary. Absolutely.
Yep.
All right. So we did have a comment from Alejandro who says he flies a lot back and forth from Mexico to US. He says, just be prepared. And I think that was going to add that when we were talking about documents is don't think you might not need something. Take more than you need. Be prepared. He says that doing it, he's always asked for something quote unquote new. Sometimes it's something you've never heard of as well. So just be ready because you're going to need something. So just take everything you got. So Alejandro, thanks for that. Appreciate that. Please clarify the difference between a radio telephone operator permit and AC radio station license. The latter is the one that's required, correct?
They're both required.
Right.
Yeah. The radio station license is issued for a specific N number aircraft, and it's carried on board the aircraft. The restricted radio telephone operator's permit is a individual pilot license that the pilot carries. So here again, I mentioned this earlier, these requirements were dropped domestically back in the late 90s. So we've gotten 25 years of pilots who have not needed one to fly in the U.S. So a lot of folks don't have it, or they did and they lost it. They don't have it anymore, but they are international travel requirements, and they are different. One's an individual license and one is an aircraft license.
All right, here's one that I didn't think of asking. I think it's just good to mention. Do you need a radio license for a handheld?
Yeah, I don't know the answer to that one.
I like that. I like the no one or the don't know. I like that's twice.
You are
do better research next time, Moser.
My educated guess is you are transmitting a radio in a foreign country. I would have to say, based on that, yes, but specifically for the handheld, don't know.
All right. Flotation devices. We mentioned them earlier on in our presentation. Do they need to be SOLAS rated?
No,
I actually know what SOLAS is.
They have to be
SOLAS. SOLAS rated.
Well, I don't even know what that is.
I know you were too high. I was hoping you would. Now I feel like a jerk. I should come prepared.
So that would have to be looked
up. The International Convention for the Safety of Life at Sea, an international maritime treaty. Blah blah blah. I could read it, but I'm not going to.
We usually get asked if they have to, if you need to carry an FAA approved flotation device, whatever. And the answer there is no, because FAA has nothing to do with flotation gear. But a Coast Guard approval is what we typically tell folks.
Okay. Wow, we got people. Boom, boom, boom. SOLAS, safety at sea.
They know it, man. They're on top of it.
I mean, this audience has been ridiculous.
Yes.
A good ridiculous. All right. I have a restricted radio telephone license from the 70s for my private, which is issued to the pilot. Does this expire?
What do you think, Craig? Does that the restricted radio operator?
Restricted radio telephone?
From the 70s. He's got one from the 70s.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. No, they never expire. That license is valid for the life of the holder.
So that's the radio station license in the aircraft that's 10 years. Is that correct?
10 years or until ownership changes, right? Whichever.
For the pilot, it's still good. That's good because I got one from way back when and I still have it somewhere.
I've got a 1984 one in my wallet and it's still valid. Never expires.
There you go.
However, if you've had one and you're thinking about should I get a replacement or a new one, 6 of one, half dozen the other costs the same, so it doesn't matter.
Okay.
I remember the hardest thing about getting the restricted radio operator's permit when I did get it was finding where on the website to do it. It was like buried in there. But I imagine we probably got a link on our website.
Oh, we do. Yep, there's a link on all the international pages. Take you right to it.
Yep, cool.
So this one we covered on a couple of slides, but I think maybe we should summarize this after I ask it. Do we need pre-written permission from the FAA or country you're flying to?
What was that, pre-written permission to go or come back?
From the FAA or the country we're flying to.
Not from FAA. No, there's no requirement there. The AOPA is a customs, a U.S. Customs and Border Protection requirement. Yeah, there's as far as individual countries you're flying to, possibly would depend on the country you're going to. But for FAA, no, you don't need any permission to leave or return.
Okay, here's just a comment, and Jim makes a good comment. Unlike cash, Canadians do love homemade cookies, so it's not a bribe, just a cookie.
It's just
Thank you, Jim, for that. I love it. Thank you, sir. That's right.
Just a very quick side note, Stephen, I know you had an experience with cookies and traveling, and it actually worked out really well. So it's actually a good recommendation to take cookies with you, right, Stephen?
It worked really well, yes.
Yes. Cookies in a thermos, the hot coffee, right?
Yeah, some of the height of all the travel and the COVID restrictions, and the staff at the gates were just stressed out. And the people at the United gate that we were waiting to get boarded to, you could tell they were not having a great day. And we had brought some cookies from Baltimore. They're unique to our area, called burger cookies. Yes. So we walked up and said, hey, they had a whole lot of people complaining, problems, yelling at them, needing things. We walked up to till the person was like trying to be nice because it's a customer service job. And then we handed in the cookie, said, we don't need anything. We just want to say thank you for keeping all of us safe.
Beautiful.
Mm-hmm. And then they called my partner back up later, Miss Julie, come to the gate desk, please, and bumped us way up in our seats.
First class, wasn't it?
Yeah, before boarding started. It was awesome.
Yeah.
Fantastic.
They were so good. And the guy almost cried. He was like, thank you. Oh. and they gave cookies to all the staff and shared them.
Nice. Bring an apple for the Mounties horse as well.
There you go.
Okay. All right. ADSB, we did talk about it, but somebody specifically asked, saying he thought that Canada is not coordinated with the U.S. ADSB. So does that mean that you need more equipment to get into Canada than an ADSB?
I think that's the basic answer is yes, you do. You need a 1090. Although there's several years out before it's mandated. And I know AOPA has been working with them as well, so maybe something can be worked out, but it's still too early to tell on that one. Okay. But otherwise, I mean, the top line answer right now is 1090 is the requirement.
Okay.
I see one here that maybe Mark can answer, because we talked about bringing food back into the U.S. being a no-no, but they're asking about, what if you're going to Canada or Mexico? Can you take food from the U.S. there?
Mm-hmm. I think it depends. So our we always have food on board for the passengers. So we put it up, we put everything in a garbage bag, and here's the food, and then I'm running my luggage through the radar thing and search my backpack, pulls out a banana. So it's a hard, they basically don't like fresh food. So if
prepackaged is probably okay.
Prepackaged is okay, but if you're like at Burger King on the way, I mean, I don't think that'll support any bugs. But as long as you package it up and say, here's the food, the remnants, or they'll put it in a garbage bag. Have a nice day. Coming back to the U.S., that's a bigger deal. So you better, here's the trash, and some require a special garbage bag, whatever, but just make sure here's our trash, and they'll give you a garbage bag or whatever, or put it in a garbage bag and hand it to the customs agent. Job done.
Someone got a text, by the way. Okay. Someone also said, by the way, remember, cannabis. Don't take that with you. When you cross international borders.
Either way, right.
Buy it there. Don't bring it back. Don't
buy it there, consume it there, and then come home.
That's exactly right. That's probably the worst thing you could do.
Yeah, it might be legal at points A and B, but don't cross the borders with it.
Right.
That's right. Okay. Okay, the student flying in Canada, we did cover that, but someone did ask, I flew in Canada with a CFI. Is that something I should not have done? Simple answer, you weren't PIC if you were a student. The CFI was, so you are fine with that.
Right.
Now, would that also go for Mexico, Bahamas, and other such?
It would.
Over the border?
Sure. Yeah, because a student pilot in any of those countries with an instructor is a passenger. That's how they're looked at. Yep. So they're fine.
Okay. We also had many basic med questions, and I had one here from early on too, so I just want to cover that again, maybe, in case there's people that weren't around to listen. Basic med is an FAA thing, and the country, the foreign country would have to specifically approve that, which I think most countries don't right now that we know of, correct?
Correct. Yeah, Bahamas and Mexico are the only two
that accept it.
Right. That allow it. Right. That allow it. Every other country, as far as we know, and you should assume, no.
Perfect. Prepackaged food. Okay, someone says, what if you're flying over the border and all of a sudden you get some weather and you can't land? I don't know what the exact question is. My guess is they're asking.
Maybe not at an airport of entry or something, or
yeah. It sounds like they're asking if you have to, like if weather forces you down at an airport other than your port of entry. Yeah, then your planned port of entry. What I always tell folks is Part 91, pilot in command, you have the authority. Deal with the situation now and unravel the red tape later. So
it's true. I mean, and not only the red tape, but it's a safety issue.
Yeah.
Right. I mean, what are you going to do? Fly through it just because that's what? No, that's why you have a radio.
Right.
And that's why there's other airports.
If you have to land somewhere else, even if it's not even a port of entry, if you have to set down in an emergency, do it. And make sure after everything's settled down on the ground, you pick up the phone and call customs and tell them what happened. And you don't want to leave them out of the loop because they're expecting you somewhere else. But you got to. Number one priority is taking care of yourself, your passengers, and the aircraft. So
that's right.
Deal with that first, and everything else later.
Yeah, I mean, it's pretty easy to prove weather, right? I mean,
right. Yeah.
It's not like it's a sunny day, I couldn't land there.
Right.
Yeah, you are PIC. Hey, just two quick ones here. One was, I think I can answer this one, correct me if I'm wrong, but it says, what documents required if you're flying with an airplane that belongs to a flying club? Same things we've talked about, and there's that letter that you'll need for whoever the owner of the aircraft is authorizing you to use it. Does that sound about right?
Mm-hmm.
Cool.
It does.
Here's one, though, that I think is a good one. This is why I saw it, and I was like, ooh. From John asking, can you carry prescription drugs across the border in the direction? Do you carry it in the original container? Do Canada or Mexico have the same list for prohibited other meds? So what do you deal with prescription meds? How does that handled?
Yeah, well, I think two parts there to that one, Chris. Number one, you want to check with the country that you're going into and see if what you're carrying is actually approved. But if it's prescription, it does have to be in the original container with your name on it, and then the doctor's information, the pharmacy, all that is on the bottle. Carry that in there. Don't make us a hodgepodge concoction of all your headache meds and throw all that stuff in a bottle that's not labeled. Probably not a good idea. But all prescription meds, as long as you carry them in the original bottles, that's the key.
Cool. All right. Good to know.
That's a good one. Is 121.5 monitored outside the U.S.?
121.5 is international. That's international emergency frequency. So yes, it is. Mm-hmm. 243 on the UHF band too. It's double that. If you happen to that frequency.
I'm going to mention this because everyone's telling me this. Again, not assuming it's right, but everyone is telling me this. Canada, the planned proposal there is to require top and bottom diversity antennas for ADS-B. So that's one guy said it's a little bit of a controversy because of that, but I've mentioned it. I've had at least 10 people tell me that. So there it is. If that's the case, then yeah, that would be something, wouldn't it?
We've heard that as well, but still, since there's no requirement or mandate, I think it's all to be determined. But we've heard that as well. Yeah.
So on our website, the AOPA.org website, is there a customs clearance third party mentioned? Is there a list of them? Do we have a preferred one? Anything like that?
You said for customs?
That
yeah, well, just
help,
third-party service to help you fly to any of these other countries.
Oh, there is. Yeah, there's a couple. There's CST Flight Services, Baja Blue Pilots. There's a couple others on there as well. But at the very bottom of all the pages, the Bahamas, Mexico, Canada page, there's third-party companies. So yeah, there's maybe 3 or 4 different handlers.
Okay, fantastic. And they are on our site. They would have to search for what? Just third-party handler, international travel. You said it's on the international flight, on the international travel page.
Mm-hmm. Down at the bottom of the home, when you pull up the international page, like for Bahamas, you get the home page there, and it's all the way down at the bottom.
Hey, Craig, here's one that this person put it in here before, and it's on our website, but it's the noise certificate for the Mexico ramp checks. What can you explain that at all?
Well, yeah, that's an interesting one because it's part 36 of the regulations. Chances are the aircraft you're flying, if it's a production airplane, has a noise certification decibel number in the flight manual somewhere, and that's really all they need to see.
Okay.
That's your noise certification. It came about, Mark can correct me if I'm wrong, but stage 1 and stage 2 airplanes, most places in the world are no longer permitted. They're just way too loud. Yeah. And, our small GA airplanes, they're loud enough, but the noise information can be found in the POH if you look for it.
Okay. Cool.
So basically carry the POH and you'll have it. That's the bottom line.
Fantastic. Someone was talking about tie downs, security wise, chain tie downs. Any recommendations or comments on that?
I think it depends where you're going. Chains are good. Chains with locks are good. Depends where you're going though. Propeller locks are good. Yeah, that's probably better than the aircraft tie down, because if the prop's locked, it's not going anywhere. So, but yeah, all those are good, as well as locking the doors. We recommend everything. It depends where you go. A lot of the Bahamas, most of the airports are on the out islands, unlit, unattended. You're out there, basically an airplane is fair game for anybody. So
there's some questions here as well about Canada and our FAA rules, specifically night. So if I'm a private pilot here, I can fly at night. What if I cross the border at night into Canada? How does that affect me? Because of their nighttime requirements.
Yeah, I don't know any prohibition that you need to be on a flight plan talking ATC like we've discussed earlier. But I don't know anything different at night in Canada.
Because people are saying you need a night rating or a commercial license to fly at night.
Is that for Canadians? Maybe.
Yes, correct.
Yeah, because we're not Canadians. Yeah. We're U.S. pilots flying in Canada.
That was the question. Do all of a sudden those things change when I cross the border now? As a U.S. FAA holder. Can I still fly? Like if I'm there for a week, can I still fly at night with my FAA private pilot license?
As long as it's allowed in the country you're going to, yes.
That would be a no then.
Yeah, if the country's regs prohibit something like that, like VFR night in the Bahamas, yes, even though you have the privilege, you can't do it in the country you're flying in.
Yeah, their rules supersede.
Well, correct. You're in a different country. You have to comply with all their flight rules as well as ours.
Yeah. Okay, gun requirements. That's one thing we didn't mention. We talked about marijuana, food, prepackaged food, and bananas. We also have guns. Remember that there are gun requirements along with your banana. Okay, so take those out of your bag before you land. No, I don't know. How does that work? People are saying it's part of our survival kit. Rifles, guns, do we know anything about that, or do we just say, look at the regs?
Well, Mexico, no way, Jose. You don't want to take them to Mexico. Bahamas, same thing. Canada, actually, our webpage has 2 links for getting a firearms permit and the firearms import requirements. So
Okay.
Canada does allow it under certain conditions. Basically has to be a rifle or a shotgun for sport or hunting.
Gotcha. Okay, yeah, that's what people were saying. There's no pistols.
No handguns, pistols, nothing like that. Yeah.
Okay, fantastic.
When hunting wild bananas.
That's right. Those bananas, man, they'll hurt you. All right, guys, I'm just going 50 other questions. It's 11:30. This is our hard stop because guests, people watching, everybody. So we know that we've gone long, as we always do, for that extra 30 minutes of questions. We are now done. Looking over here. Camera's not over here, so we are now done. Hopefully you'll come. Camera too.
That's camera. Yeah.
Oh my gosh, it's been a long day. So first and foremost, thank you to Mark. Thank you for Craig for allowing us to waste 2 hours of your time. Mark, the button presser. We'll come up with a good name for you. Did start us off early, so for those of you that were on early, thank you. We were real early. But last, if you can go back to the slide for the next one, which is December 15th. It will be our Christmas extravaganza. Bring your friends, bring your family, bring anyone else. Pets are also welcome.
Yeah, sure.
December 15th at 10 o'clock Universal Mountain Time. Riddle me this, best questions from 2022. It'll be awesome. You'll love it. And with that, thank you, everybody. Steven, as always, on the back end. I appreciate it. So, Chris, play us out.
I don't even have that here. But anyway, I was going to say 1700 Universal Time Coordinated. That's 12 Eastern for the folks out here. So anyway, thank you guys so much for being here. We appreciate it.
Thank you, everybody.
Okay.
Talk to you later.
Bye.